All right, here with Tyson Blaser, first year as Red Sox catching coordinator, 6 years coaching the Yankees org, but signed free agent out of Iowa, and still gives lessons in the offseason in the Quad Cities. So, Tyson, thanks for being on with me.
Man, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, you and I go way, way back, so this is fun for me. I do want to jump right in. Right now, what's the difference of getting a job in pro ball than when you first started?
It's more about, what you know than who you know. I think pro ball used to be about having those connections in pro ball. And when you were kind of in it, they stayed within that group. And now pro ball has grown exponentially in the way we look at things and how we do things. And so, if you're good at your job and you're good at what you do, they're going to find you.
What are tips for somebody, because obviously you played and then you jumped in, but we have so many examples now of, Berto Mercado is a good friend. He was in high school. He's managing the Orioles organization now. But, any tips for somebody that's trying to get into it that might help them?
Yeah, I think too, just like ABCA has grown so large and it's incorporated so many more pro teams than ever. There's a reason for that. Colleges have always been a little bit ahead of the pro game in creativity and in how they look at leveraging data to get their guys better. Pro ball's always had the means, whereas in college D3, JUCO, those guys are finding ways to get better and using the tech that they do have to get these guys better and show improvement. So I think understanding the tech, being able to use it, show that your guys are getting better, and then putting yourself out there a little bit so people see you and you have some communication with people and talk about what you know and just show that you're very, very confident in what you do, and good things will happen.
Hey, was your first year as a member the year you spoke 2020 in Nashville?
Yes, it was.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah,
You know, I,
and I will
it's
I will
almost
be a
like the
member
winter
forever.
meetings now there. You look at the amount of people that are getting interviewed at the ABCA convention. It has like a winter meeting feel to it almost with people getting jobs out of the ABCA convention.
Yeah, and informal interviews at that too. Sometimes it's just they have an idea of some guys that they want to see and talk to and poke around. So sometimes you're getting interviewed and you don't even know it.
Hey, was COVID a positive or a negative for you because it delayed your managing career?
Um, I think it was a positive on a few fronts. Made me kind of look at what I really wanted to do. Gave me plenty of time to think. Um, and for everything that COVID was and was not, for me, it was huge to be able to slow down and be with my family. So just looking back at that and being able to spend a summer with my family and be able to just to pour into them and be with them, like that is a summer that won't happen again. So that was the silver lining of COVID there for me.
How do you make family work in pro ball?
It's tough. I'm still learning how to do it on this side of
I
it.
mean,
It's
because
a
Holly and the
touch
kids were
easier on.
with you last summer, correct? They stayed in the
Yeah.
hotel, right? I mean, you had a house
Oh
in the Quad
man.
Cities, and they stayed with you in the hotel last summer, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So up until this year, we've always spent the summers together in a hotel room. So in in Staten Island in 18 and 19, we were in a hotel room that felt like it was a 10 by 10 room where we were doing our dishes and our laundry and showering all in the same tub. We had, two kids in one bed, me and my wife in the other. And most nights all four would be in one bed. So it was just like you make do, and my wife's been a trooper with it, and so this year has been a welcome change where they have a little bit more normalcy at home, and I can get home, every so often.
I mean, that's a benefit of being a coordinator, correct? Is I mean, you don't have a lot of time because you're going to the DR and you're all over the place, but at least you can maybe carve out some time to get home. Or if you're managing, you can't do that. You can't leave the team.
Yeah, exactly. You can't leave a team, and on the coordinator side of it, it's like sometimes it's good to step away and let the coaches coach and make sure that we're touching base with them and trying not to be a super coach, just trying to make sure that our guys are doing what we've hired them to do and the skill set that they have and utilize that and then just be a resource for them and hopefully put together a program that's going to drive some results.
By the way, my dad was coaching summer ball when I was a little kid, so we did the same thing. We would be in Princeton, Illinois, during the year, and then we'd be in Galesburg, and my crib was in a closet in the hotel that we lived in the first year, and then we actually lived with the players. Like, you would never do this right now. We actually lived with the players in a college summer house. So our family, my brother, my mom, my dad, we lived with the players at a huge house in Galesburg, Illinois. So like, that's some of my first memories as a kid when I was like 4 and 5, was being at the field but living in a house with college kids.
My kids crack me up. They think we have like all like 4 or 5 different homes, and I'm like, no, we ain't got that kind of dough, guys. And but it's funny. So last year they thought they were pretty special because minor leaguers got their housing paid for last year for first time. Good deal for them. But we were all at the same hotel, coaches and players, and so my kids would come back to the hotel, and the players would say hi to them. They thought they were the coolest thing ever. So it was fun.
Do you think that was the best thing with the changes for the minor league guys, was not having to find housing coming out of spring training?
Yeah, no doubt. Going back just to my playing times, at one point we were in a 3-bedroom house. There was, 2 in the living room that we split up, 1 in the dining room. We had 3 upstairs, and everyone upstairs had a wife or a fiance or a girlfriend. And we were just trying to make ends meet. And so the fact that they don't have to do that, they have the money that's paid for them, and now even on top of that, they're getting a little bit more bump in pay, getting paid more months of the year. There's going to be more changes to come and of what that looks like. But I think it allows people to chase it a little bit longer and, try to make a career out of it.
Do you have to be a manager to get a coordinator's job? Does that
No.
help? Does it help if you manage?
Yeah, I think doing the job, it helps. Getting in the room, I don't know if it helps. I know the managerial portion of it for me was a huge growth for me as a coach, is organization, how to deal with people, how to manage people, how to put together daily schedules, how to put together a program. And so that was a huge step in my progression. But no, you don't have to go from a manager to a coordinator. I think some of these private sector guys that are running programs, are running 50, 60, 70 kids through in 3 days, and then have a program that's tech driven and data driven and pushing results, and can show they're getting guys better. That those guys are going to get noticed, and they're going to be looked at to come in and be in a coordinator position, that they could put that program in place and then let the coaches coach.
And you ran the Yankees complex, correct? The year after COVID?
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's a coordinator's position, isn't it? I mean, I know you have your coordinator, but you were coordinating the Tampa complex, correct?
Yeah. So you don't get the fancy title for that, but you get to do all the fun stuff that gets involved with that. And that was the biggest year of development for me, running a schedule, touching base with departments, make sure everyone's on the same page. Also trying to manage on top of that, and just what that entails, and the amount of time it puts in. I think my wife, of all the years in baseball, that was the toughest for her and the kids. But I think it set us up for where we're at.
Did you have to release anybody last summer?
Yeah.
And you had to have that conversation?
Yeah. That's the worst part, man. Like, on the professional side of things, there has to be, especially as a manager, you have to build these, personal relationships with people, right? Like you care for them deeply, whether you like the kid or don't like the kid. You spend so much time with them, you love them, that it's a part of what you do. But then you have to be able to separate. And so at one point last year, I had to bring in 3 kids after the game, one right after the other. And by the time I went to grab the 3rd kid, everybody in that entire locker room had stopped doing anything, and they were all sitting down. No music was on, and they were just kind of waiting to see if that was going to be the last one, if I was coming out for another one. It's a bad feeling. It's not something you like to do, but it is part of the game.
Who told you were done?
Kind of inferred, and then it was kind of a weird day. I came in after the last day of spring training, and second to last day of spring training. I'd made it through a last day of cuts and final cuts, and I thought I had made a roster. And went to the AA roster that thought that's where I was going to be. Wasn't there. Wasn't on the AAA. Wasn't on the high A. Wasn't on the low A. And I was like, Wasn't on the extended. I was like, well, if I'm not on any of these, and so I went and sat in my locker, and then someone came and tapped me, and so they came and got me. Yeah, so that was how I ended up finding out that my playing career was over.
Was I the first person you saw after you got released?
Yeah, I was gonna
You
say
came to
probably pretty
Macomb.
dang close.
I was
Yeah,
trying
I
to
did.
think about the timeline because you came to Macomb fairly quickly after you got done.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the heck to do. A high school or not a college job had opened up, and I was thinking about applying for it. Had just got back, and we had I sat on the gator and we drug the infield, and we talked about. And you're like, do you really want to get into this? You know, it's a commitment for you and the family. And I was like, I think so. This is what I want to do.
I
So
had the same talk with you that my parents had with me of like, is this what you really want to do? Like, it's not going to be easy. And then you take a high school job. Did it help taking the high school job after you got done?
yeah, you know what? Not on the baseball side of it, but on the teaching side of it, and teaching and coaching goes so hand in hand. You know, trying to figure out how to get through to a high level learner, a low level learner, the kid in between that doesn't want to do anything is really gifted, and the ones that try really hard and aren't gifted, and just trying to figure out how to reach all of those kids and figure out how to get through to them and make it work.
Well, I
That
talked to you
was
that
super
spring,
rewarding.
and you're like, they do not listen. And I was like, hey, they don't care. They don't care that you played professional baseball. I'm like, this generation of kids does not care that you played professional baseball. They just want to know what you can do for them. And that was you're like, they do not listen. Like, yep, that's this
uh
generation. They don't care.
Yeah, they all have lives, and it's the most important thing that's going on at that moment. It doesn't matter what you've done or did. It's like, what are you doing for me right now?
Yep, that also allowed you to get your lessons going then too.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
that's the thing. It's like you stink. It stinks you got released. You're in high school, but then it allows you to get your lessons going in the Quad Cities.
Yep. Always had given lessons for, a long time. And then after getting released, I was able to ramp that up. And I think though after getting released, it was kind of that time where social media was just blowing up, right? Hitting Twitter was huge. And just getting on and reading and watching and looking, and it just started making me question some of the things that I knew and what I did, and not being tied to an organization and a philosophy. I was able just to kind of explore all things, and have a better idea of, why they did this. Maybe I didn't like it. Maybe I did like it, but I was able just to look at it all and come up with a kind of what I believed in, and then also just experiment a little bit and try some new things and not be worried about what other people were thinking, what other people were doing. It was like, let's just try this. Let's see if we can get better. And I think that really helped me grow as a coach.
Yeah, and we'll get in a little bit some of that a little bit later on. Hey, what'd you learn from your injuries at Iowa?
Oh my gosh.
For anybody that
That
doesn't
I
know
was,
Tyson's path, he played 5 years at Iowa for us, and it seemed like every year you were dinged. Weird things. We're at
yeah.
Louisville. You dive back in. The catcher comes behind on a base hit. You dive back in. You bang up your hand. And what did you learn from all of those things?
That baseball did not define who I was. And that took a long time through that process to figure out, because your identity is tied so much to what you do and what I had done. And that was baseball for forever and ever. And, felt like I was going to be able to go and play professionally. And then I injury and injury and injury and small things. And it just like takes a toll on you mentally. And if I don't have baseball, then who am I, and what do I do, and what am I? And so I think just having to work through that and kind of, seeing my baseball mortality, and it's like, and coming to grips with that, like I knew at that point that I was like, baseball didn't define me. I was going to be okay. I had an education. And so like it took a while to get to that point, but that is what I had learned from, um, my time in Iowa, and the injuries I had. And it allowed me to be a decent professional player, because I got into professional baseball and I was playing on house money, and I was just having a blast.
It killed us, by the way. It killed our team because we were catching our third and maybe fourth guy at times, and that's not what that
Right.
team was built for. we didn't have a ton of
Yeah, yeah.
depth, and those teams would have been a heck of a lot better if you would have stayed healthy.
Making me feel
You can't
bad
hide. You
again,
can't
man.
hide anybody back there. That's the one position you can't. It's the most important position on the field. You have to be good back there. You can't hide
Yeah.
anybody back there. You can hide people other places, but not there. Hey, does that help you deal with players now? You're gonna have injuries with the players that you coach. Does that help you
Yeah.
now? Because you've been there.
Yeah, I think that, yeah. So, you don't technically have to have experience to play in pro ball, to coach in pro ball. The experience you don't have, you'll get as once you get into pro ball. But I think that it has allowed me to relate to the players on a pretty personal level with these guys. And, you know, I'd played it. I had gone through the injuries. I wasn't a high prospect by any means. I was always a bench guy coming off the bench. And so, like, being able to relate to a majority, because that's a majority of these guys. Like, a majority of these guys aren't your studs, aren't your top prospects. And so I think being able just to put myself in their shoes, because I lived it, I was in their shoes. I think that it really helped, and it just made it easier to be able to talk to these guys.
I try to give coaches tips that like don't leave your injured players on an island. I mean, again, you said it like you feel like your identity's taken from you. Don't leave them alone because it's going to compound the fact that they're not on the field.
No, no doubt.
Should the expectations for a pro or college player be that it's going to be a bumpy ride?
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I think that adversity is just a huge part of what you do. It's baseball. You're going to get injured. You're going to have roll an ankle. You're going to do a hamstring, a quad, whatever it may be. You're going to go for 30 at some point, with 10, 15 Ks. Like, the ones that haven't struggled at all, when they get to pro ball, you're going to struggle. So at some point, like, I'm good with watching a guy have to go through it and fight his way through it and kind of see what happens on that side of it. I'm sure you saw it as a coach. It's like, how are guys going to respond once they do struggle? Because it's going to happen. All right. It's going to happen. It happens to everybody. I come in my freshman year at Iowa, and it was a big fish, small pond, and just thought I was going to be really, really good. And I had two good catchers in front of me, and I was struggled to hit, and it was hard. But it just gives you a better perspective and shows you you got to fight for everything that you're going to get.
Was it Ben Geelan and Dusty Napoleon? Is that who's ahead of you?
Yeah.
It's two good
Yeah.
ones to actually
Dude, yeah.
be around.
Yep.
We
Yep.
always had good catching, and we couldn't keep them healthy all the time, but we had good catching there. We did.
Yeah.
Have you kept any of the drills from Iowa?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I did one this spring training. And as part of the catcher Olympics, I do at the end of spring. Guys bust their butt all spring, so we have a little bit of fun, a little competition. But took one from, I think I was pretty sure it was Welker. But we block a ball, we catch a ball, you sprint out, you pick a bunt, you throw it to first, you slide back, you throw it to home, and the guys are just moving all over the place, and it's more fun than it is a skill building. But I definitely took that one from our preset blocks. We did a lot of preset hands on blocks and stuff like that, so I took some of that stuff. I think you take drills from anywhere and everywhere. I equate it to teaching. Like, good teachers are always scraping material from other teachers. Good coaches are always going to be scraping things from other coaches.
If you could go back and tell your college self something, what would that be?
Take care of the body a little bit better. Sleep is super important. Like, you tried to do it all. You lift in early. You run into class. You might get a little lunch. You get done. You stay into the library too late, and then on the weekends you're trying to burn the candle on both ends, where you're being a college student and an athlete. So
I tried to tell
I would tell
you
myself,
guys, I'd be like,
I know.
you can't be good at all three. You can't. I mean,
No.
like, those are anomalies, and I think I was one of those guys, but. You can't be good academically, athletically, and socially. Like, you can't be good. You can't be great at all three of those things. So you're going to have to hopefully you give the social piece up, but you can't be great at all three. Not now.
Yeah. And then just the older you get and the more experience you get, like, the more perspective you have. And that would be something I would go back and tell myself, is just like, don't do it all. Don't do it all. Be really good at a couple things, and try not to be average at everything.
Mine would be easy on yourself for you.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, we'd be in the cage. I was thinking about this this morning in the shower. We be in the cage, you would crush 9 in a row, and then you take one bad one, and you'd want to focus on that one bad one. And finally, I was like, "Hey, you just hit 9 in a row. Let's focus on the good ones." Because it's just like anything else. What you pay attention to, you're going to get. So if you pay attention to your bad reps, you're going to keep getting those bad reps. If you pay attention to your good reps, I was thinking about Ricky Henderson. I think Ricky Henderson was the best at self-talk and talking about himself. I mean, I don't think you can talk about yourself in third person like he did, but I thought Ricky Henderson was probably the best at just flushing it and keeping himself extremely positive in his self-talk.
Yeah, you nailed it. I still am that way, to an extent, and it's something that I've always dealt with, and I watch players do it, and so I always feel hypocritical, and I'm like, hey man, let's focus on the good ones, right? Baseball, you're gonna fail 7 out of 10 times at the plate, and you're gonna be moving your way up, and it's tough. I still am that way, even in my work, when guys have bad game, numbers don't come back, and I'm like freaking out. It's like, no, take a deep breath. We're gonna be all right. Let's stick to the process. We're doing things the right way.
Hey, do you remember you used to say I should be a professor?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
looking back now, I don't know if that was a compliment or not. I don't know if that was a good thing, or you meant you should be teaching instead of coaching.
No, it was a good thing. You were always ahead of the game on the mental side of it, on the self talk, and you were always ahead of the game there. And I just remember always having conversations with you and walking away and kind of like Mr. Miyagi and me. I'm like, dang. So
And you talked about being a big fish in a small pond because you went to a 1A school in Illinois. And
mhm.
by the way, you dropped 30 points a game your senior year of high school. But that's why I was excited about getting you to Iowa because I knew how good an athlete you were. And I knew you were going to figure it out at some point. I liked our small school kids. I always liked small school kids. It took them a little bit to get adjusted, but I was excited just because of the type of athlete you were.
Yeah. And still today, like when I look at guys, like I want athletes. And so, right or wrong, agree, disagree. But when a guy goes out there and puts up numbers on the basketball court, on the baseball diamond, on the football field, on golf, and whatever it may be, it's like there's something innate in there there's some athleticism. The body works. He knows proprioception. He can make his body work and do what it wants. And I think if you can do that, then you're coachable, and we can get you where you need to be.
It reminded me of Sal Fasano because he played at Evansville for my dad. And Sal, if you look at Sal now, he's a big dude, but athlete, really athletic. He could dunk. And
That's
you
awesome.
wouldn't think that looking at Sal, but that's the type of athlete that Sal was. You know, how was the recruiting process for you?
Um, Heavy late. Like I'd done a couple. I played 3 sports. Was never like big into the exposure camps or AAU teams. And then like one summer, I played a team out of Chicago. Went to area coach tryout in Chicago. Performed pretty well. Name got out there, and then so I had some things late. I talked to Michigan State late, Eastern.
UIC, I
Iowa,
think UIC
UIC. It
was
was
in there
down
too.
between, yeah, it was down between UIC and Iowa. Illinois jumped in really, really late to the process. Yeah, like a couple days before I made my decision. So, yeah, it was non-existent until it all happened pretty quick. Which actually, looking back on it was pretty nice. There was no stress for me involved. Like I didn't know what I didn't know at that point. I was just playing sports and having fun, and then realizing that I probably could go play, and baseball seemed to be the thing that I enjoyed to do the most.
Well, and I try to relate that to parents and players, high school players and parents. Like the longer you wait, the better off you're going to be. And I think with the new rules that we're putting in place, I think it's going to help kids delay their decisions to where you're going to see more of kids getting the right fit because they're waiting longer. And their development, kids develop late. You're a late developer.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to help parents and players and coaches, college coaches too, because you're going to have to wait a little bit longer on the process, so you give kids more time to develop.
Yeah, I love that on the baseball side of things. Like late developers, and then next thing you know, by the time they're juniors, seniors, they're studs, and then they're in pro ball, and next thing you know, they're playing the big leagues. I think more so than any other sport, you have got time to develop and be a little bit of a late bloomer. I've seen a bunch of pitchers that are like that. You know, they just come into their body, come into their own, figure out how the body works, and all of a sudden they're throwing 95,
Matt Dermody.
98. Yeah, Derm still doing it. He's with the Red Sox right now in AAA.
Tell him I said hello. Good
Oh,
human being.
yeah, he
Hey,
is.
what role do you have? Great parents. So, what role do parents play in maybe the recruiting process? Because I think they can hurt and they can also help.
Yeah, so it was actually infuriating for me. Though my parents are fantastic and have always given me everything that I've ever needed, never wanted. But they were very hands off on decision making process. That they have been forever, and it's like, hey, we'll talk through both sides of it, but we're staying neutral, and you have to make the decision. And man, it was tough. I remember at first like I'm gonna go to UIC and I'm gonna play baseball. Good, decent baseball school. Finds himself in the regionals and I said okay. And I remember a couple days he didn't say anything. I was so mad. I was like waiting for him to say yeah, all right, let's go. Nothing. So I remember 2 days later coming into his office and saying I'm gonna go to Iowa. It fits me. It's better for me. It's more of a college. It's not a community campus. And he's like, okay, like, nothing. Come give me something. But yeah, they've always been supportive in all the decisions, but really made me make my own decisions.
And two of my favorites all time in the recruiting process were your parents, and so that's how I knew you had a little bit of a chance too. And parents listening in, try to handle it the way that Tyson's parents did, because a college coach is going to appreciate that and know that you're probably not going to have a whole lot of issues with those parents when their kid shows up on campus.
Yeah, my something my dad had told me, and I still remember it to this day. And just talking about like the recruiting process, but just even how to handle coaches. It was like, hey, take as much as you possibly can away from the coaches that you like, and take even more from the ones you don't. And it just like it stuck with me to still to this day because like the good ones are going to shape you, and the ones that you don't like are going to create an identity for you. Because like, all right, hey, I'm going to do this slightly different. I'm going to do this slightly different, and you already have that foundation from the good coaches that you took things from. So I still sticks in my head, still to this day, and still something that I look at, and I think it opens your mind too of just not dismissing anybody or saying that coach is out to get me or he's not a good coach. It's like no, it keeps me open. What can I learn from him? What can I learn in spite of them? What can I learn that they do well? So I thought it was a really really good advice that I had got from my father.
Has there been much difference between the way the Yankees run things and the way the Red Sox run things? I know you can't get into a lot of details with that, which I knew there weren't. I just wanted to put it in there. I know you can't get into details, but
Ah,
is there
um,
much of a difference? I mean, they are rivals in the same division, and they've been
yeah,
rivals.
man.
It's the best rivalry you have in baseball is Yankees and Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the competition aspect of it, no doubt. But at the end of the day, no. Like the ultimate goal of any organization is to put as many players you possibly can into the big leagues to help the big club win. So I don't care how it happens. And yeah, so some of our processes are different than the Yankees and vice versa. None better than the other one. This they have their beliefs. Red Sox have our beliefs, and um, to be honest with you, it's just if we can win and put people in the big leagues, like that's all that matters.
How has the travel been with your new job?
This has been good. Yeah,
Is
I
this the
mean,
first time
look,
you've gone to the DR?
no, I'd gone a couple times with the Yankees. I love it down there. It's very very enjoyable. Like the kids are they're kids, and it's just they're just sponges, man, and they just want to hear and learn on anything that you put down there. So it's just like it's enjoyable. You go down there, it's happy. It's baseball at its purest form. So I very much enjoy my time going down there. So first trip was awesome. Hopefully get back there in about a month.
What's the youngest age kid you have at the complex for the Red Sox?
16. I know there's like there's a weird rule where you can get a kid at 15 and he can't play that year, and then 16, but have to fall into those parameters. But 16. And now because of the new rules in the minor leagues, if a player comes from the DR to the US, they count toward your total number, and that number keeps dwindling. So, consequently, you're going to see a few more kids stay down in the DR probably a little bit longer. Your numbers are going to be a little bit higher. So, you're still going to have your 17, 18-year-old kids that come over that, are really advanced, but you're going to probably see a few more, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, coming over because it's hard. It's competition. There's only 4 teams that you're making, one rookie ball team and your DSL teams, 2 of them usually. And so it's tough. It's tough to be in pro ball.
Is that where the off season with you going back to the Quad Cities, you're working with younger kids there? Does that allow you to stay sharp with what you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge part of it. It's my playground. I say it's fantastic. Like, I enjoy giving lessons. I've got a high school group we do on Sundays, and where between 10 to 15 catchers come in, and you build a bond. But like I get to try some things out with them and work on some things, and I'm learning from them because they're not as refined as my big guys, so they just figure out a way to get some things done. I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, I don't know. It's how I can get to the ball. Okay, and so you're picking little things from it, and also teaches you some patience with my wife would probably tell you I need more of, but I also have like 8 and 10-year-olds, and I shake your head sometimes. So you really just
Where are
like,
you
hey,
starting with the 8 to 10-year-olds? Where are you starting with them? I mean,
yeah,
hopefully they're able to just catch the ball, but I've seen your videos. You're not doing a whole lot. You're not dumbing it down a whole lot for those guys. You're going after it with your drill stuff with those little guys.
yeah. So with the little guys, like they can still do all the drills that we do at our level. It's about setting them up for success and maybe using lighter balls and obviously turning it down and how hard you flip it. But our young guys on the catching side of it, I always start with telling the parents like, hey, we'll do this. This is fine, but you're probably better off just going to the backyard and playing catch at the end of the day. So that's my ultimate advice. Probably turns away
That's the
some
culture
business
of the
from me,
parents
but
now too, though, right? Like
it is.
it's just the culture of the parents. I don't get that piece. I worked with a little kid the other day, and so I gave his mom wiffle balls and tennis balls. I said, "Hey, I'll keep doing this with him, but he needs to find some self mastery in the backyard. And here, take these wiffle balls and tennis balls. He's going to get as much out of that with micro dosing and throwing a ball against the wall and playing catch with himself than he is anything that I'm going to be able to do for him."
No doubt. No doubt.
So, with your pro catchers, where are you starting with them?
From the ground, start from the ground, work up. I think it's the most important thing is just can we pocket the baseball cleanly every single time? We can get into some of the nuances of glove path efficiency, attack angles, but I'm looking for our guys to be in a good athletic position and then pocket the baseball. If we can dumb it down to just that, we can expunge on a lot of different things and go in a lot of different areas. And I'm not going to get super in depth to what is we do in our philosophies, but stay below the ball, pocket the baseball. If we can do those things, we're going to be all right.
And that's a barrier of entry to get into pro ball, correct? A scout's not gonna turn a catcher in that can't pocket the baseball, correct?
Yeah. So
Because I mean,
exactly.
that eliminates a lot of the guys. They're not even gonna get to you if they can't pocket the baseball.
Unless they hit
Or
a
am I wrong on that? I mean, do you have some guys that clank it?
Oh, yeah. I think everybody does, but the guys that are clanking it, I think, are probably more just they're in their own heads on some things. But um, it really depends on what Major League Baseball decides to do in the next 5 years. Because if they end up going to an automated zone fully, you are going to see some guys that just doesn't really. As long as you can catch the ball somehow, you're going to see dudes that are
Gonna be
hitting
tough
balls
for me
500
to
feet.
watch that.
Same.
I love the catching position. I love it. I
Mhm.
always have, and I have an affinity for guys that can just make it look good.
Yeah.
Just You have the
Yeah,
same
we can.
set pregame routine for all your catchers, or you give them some freedom on what they're doing?
Yeah, so we have a foundation of kind of what it needs to look. We got a little check list of what our guys need to check off, and then there's some individualization at each level based off the catcher and kind of what he needs a little bit more. Guys not moving side to side, we'll have a little bit more blocking put in there. If a guy is, not as he's struggling on the glove side, we put in a few more glove side drills. But at the foundation of it's all the same. Then we'll just customize it based off of the needs.
From a receiving standpoint, with the glove, with the presentation piece, I mean, how much has that changed over the years, or has it changed hardly at all? Because I mean, I was a quarter turn,
Yeah,
but I mean,
I
it seems like everybody's thumb down for the most part now when they
yeah.
start.
So definitely, I was quarter turn guy, right? I think across baseball right now, majority of people are going to say that the glove that thumb has got to be at 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock. If it starts getting turned up at all, just putting yourself in a tough position where the glove's going to have to move late right before catch. Before catch, the thumb always is going to go down. Like you just look at anybody catching a ball below their waist, the thumb goes down. So
Did you have to tinker around with that as a coach? Because for me, like as you evolve, there's new teachings, and I would always have to try to go through it myself. Did you have to try to tinker around with that with thumb down from a presentation standpoint?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I still get back there and do some drills with our guys and my lesson guys in the off season. And when I was managing Sunday Fun Day, I would always throw on the gear and I'd go back there and I would catch. I'd give the catchers the off day and I would catch the sides on Sunday. And they thought it was great, but it was more for me to get back there and feel some of the things that I'm telling them to do and reminding myself it is not easy.
I loved getting back there, but I never put gear on.
I know. I watched you. It was nuts. I don't know what you were doing, man.
Kevin Lee, day in the bubble. Oh,
Oh my
people still
goodness.
talk about that. That's a great story. We had a poor, and Kevin's doing great. I still talk to him. He lives in L.A., but a poor freshman catcher. He's a dual kid. He ended up being a great pitcher for us, but
Yeah.
he could not catch the ball. And so I jumped back there. I was like, hey, you're making this way too difficult. Just be soft with your hands and just catch the baseball. Just catch the baseball.
The general, what a guy.
Hey, how are you getting your American players ready to call pitches?
That is a great question,
Because
Coach.
DR, you probably those guys probably call pitches, right, in the DR?
So yeah. It's trial by error. You know, I get it at the college level that your job is dependent on winning. And so these guys are, either have got the earpieces now or whatever they do, and a lot of them are just getting
Pitch
the,
com, it's
the
off the
wristband
wristband.
cards and yeah, and so it's something we struggle with. People are like, "What do you do?" And to be honest with you, I throw it a lot on our pitching guys. They're the ones that are working with the pitchers every single day. They know exactly what they need to do, what their goals are. How much they're supposed to throw a pitch, and their strengths and their weaknesses. So as our catching coaches, what we talk to them is like, you are the support for the pitching coach. So make sure that we're not saying anything different than they need, and then make sure we're on the same page and push on the pitching coaches to involve our catchers in the game planning every single day to make sure that we are on the same page. And then during game, just talking through them. I hate when people are like, "That's the wrong pitch." There's never a wrong pitch. You can throw the best pitch and you can go for a homer. You can throw the worst pitch and you can be strike three. Yeah, there are better pitches in that situation. So it's always like, hey, what was another option there? Because the worst thing you can do is start to get in a guy's head or make them start second guessing the fingers that they're throwing down. I think it's an education process and building up their confidence to be able to think through it and then be able to verbalize what's going on in their head. And if you start clouding that up, then the fingers don't work as well, and we start making some interesting decisions. So long answer, it goes to the pitching coach, to our catching coach, and then an education process with our catchers in game and then pregame.
With with pitchers now, not some still have great feel, but most don't have great feel. So when you're calling or trying to call pitches, Are we setting guys up as much as the hitter, or are we just going? It just seems like guys are just trying to blow guys away with their stuff now rather than set guys up.
Yeah, throw your best pitch. Like we don't worry a whole lot about hitters' weaknesses. There's varying levels as you continue to move up the levels of the minor leagues, but for the most part, throw the pitcher's best pitch. When in doubt, throw the pitcher's best pitch. So to your point, yeah, there some of the sequences get a little bit muddy. They get better and cleaned up as they go up. You see more of that. I think especially at the AAA level where those guys have had big league time, they know how to pitch a little bit more. But at the lower levels, for sure, it is pitcher strength and throw that. And we'll
How
see.
are you helping catchers figure that out with the pitchers, like what the pitcher's best pitch is?
Yeah, that's a fun part. We talk with them all the time. All right, coaches at each individual level talking with them. Hey, this is the next pitcher. What are his strengths? What's his out pitch? What are we working on? So that's the questions we ask those guys all the time. Is from a catching standpoint, they're expected to know that. You're expected to know your staff and what they do, and not ask them to do something that they can't.
How do you stay patient when you're asking somebody to make a change and they may not get it right away?
It's tough. That is a really good question. It's funny. People say when you say good question, you're just buying some time for the answer. Yeah, I think that the toughest part about it is just that they. See, you got me all stumbled up. It's a good question, man.
Well, I mean, is there a realistic timeline for that? I mean, for me, that was hard for me, and I think I got better at it. I think that was something I always needed to get better at as a coach. Is you're asking players to make changes, but they may not get it right away, and so you got to give them some grace that it may take them a little bit to work through it.
Yeah. So what we find out here is what is that grace period? Because we are so numbers driven and looking at sample size. So if a guy we make a change, we know we're going to have to stick with it until we have enough sample size before we can see an emerging trend, or if we can see an actual enough of a sample to say, hey, it's worked or it's not worked. And then you have to get to that point and you have to say, okay, well, is it going to work? Is he just still struggling to the point? So that's where the baseball field kind of comes into it. But it's hard. It's hard to have patience because of just the you look at those numbers every day and they start to tick down and they're ticking down and they're ticking down. And you're like, it seems like he's not getting it. It's not taking hold, but it looks better. Like, so now are we making the change because the numbers are ticking down, but yet visually it's looking better? Or is it something like, hey, all of a sudden it looks terrible, but the numbers are trending up? So it's a give and take. The patience part of it, that is a hard thing, especially when you're in the trenches with the guys. Like, you make that change, you want them to happen right now. On the more macro level, on the coordinator side, like, I want the numbers to be good, but I'm also have to have more patience. And I'm talking with our coaches like, hey, give them another week, give them another week. So probably have more patience there than I do at home.
How do you nurse the player through that though? Because they're competitive, they want to do well, they want to throw their best bolt out there every time. How do you nurse the players through being patient with it too?
I think it helps if you have a good relationship with the player. So if they have a good relationship with an individual coach at the level and the coordinator, you sit down with them like, all right, this is where you're at. This is where we want you to go. We understand this is where you're at since the change has happened. And then talk them through. I'm very transparent with how I go about things. I want them to know exactly what they're being evaluated on, and then show them where they're at, show them the numbers, show that they're creeping up, creeping down, and then have honest conversations with these guys. So we know, hey, you weren't very good. We're going to make a change to hopefully get to here 2 weeks in and be like, hey, we've ticked up a little bit. It's not looking great. How do you feel? Where are you at? How are you mentally? Okay, hey, I think we're still on the right path. We are trending up over the last week. We're going to stick with it. Another weekend, also not having an ego on my side of it to be like, hey, all right, did not work. All right, we've watched plenty of film. We've got enough data now. We're going to make the change and we're going to go here. So you just hopefully you are more time successful than not, because then you start to lose that guy's trust. But that's how I go about it.
Hey, catchers throw the most out of anybody. So, what type of arm care are guys doing? Like pre game to get ready? Are they doing J bands plyo throws? Are they doing any of the stuff that the pitchers are using?
Yeah, so I know that'll be an kind of an off-season point for us and our throwing program, but our guys do some plyo stuff before the game for sure.
Which ones do they do?
They've got each one of them have a set kind of routine from. I know our guy in high A has had one from last year. Our guy just last night has got a one that he goes through plyos with some exchange stuff and get the arm working from an angle. So I think it's kind of an individualized. We want to standardize it a little bit more going into next year, so we can maximize our off season
They long toss much?
with the starting pitcher. So it's depending on what the starting pitcher does. I'm not huge on lawn toss. I think it's for the guy's individual. Like I want them to be able to have some force behind it and be able to keep the ball on a line because guys can throw the ball and lawn toss and throw that ball 1,000 feet in the air and not put a whole lot behind it. I like a little bit more behind it.
They play so they warm up the pitcher then pregame.
Yeah, that's
The whole are they with them the whole time?
yes, the whole time.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. When are they getting any sort of in and out throws in? I know pro ball is a little bit different with how you guys do in and out. I know you don't do it as much. It's probably before batting practice, correct? If you're going to do it.
Yeah, so each that's what's crazy. Each
That's why
level
I love going to minor league games, but I don't like going to minor league games because you miss some of the stuff that happens before batting practice.
oh, no doubt. I think each schedule at each affiliate is slightly different. We want if our starting guy is throwing, he's playing 4 to 5 times a week, right? Like if we do some exchange work, if we do some throwing stuff, it's probably going to be short. It's going to be before the game. And when I say short, kind of short before the bases because he's getting 9 throws in, and we want him every other inning to let it eat a little bit. The backup guy is going to throw at least one time a game, usually right before BP. And if we get there on the road, we'll get out there early. Our pitchers usually do so that we can throw at that time if we got enough time on the field. But our backup guy probably one time a week, and our starter guy maintenance.
Their arms hang much.
Yeah, you know what? Not. Yeah, you have your instances, but for the most part, not as much, man. Like
You think it's
just
all
the idea
the
of,
training stuff that they're doing now?
I think it is. I think just the routines and they're throwing every day and they're cognizant of what it is that we're trying to do and we're not overworking them. And there's something to be said. Catchers throw more than anybody on the baseball field.
How do you relay to them about taking a little bit off the throw but not losing their release point?
Yeah, I'm huge on slow it down. I want the ball coming out. I think your body has to work together, right? So we can look really, really good at footwork exchange and being right here. Like I've seen plenty of guys look really good there, and then you have to put it all together. So I would like, hey, slow it down, get it in the hand, get out front, feel the release point, but we're gonna let that ball get out of the hand. So we're feeling the body and feeling the sequencing and getting in our back hip and being able to attack the throw. All of those things is huge. The sequencing for me is an unlock for our catchers.
How if somebody's late with getting the ball up, how do you help that?
I think you want it to happen. You want to figure it out for them naturally. So throwing them some heavy balls, and when they're kids, they got to get the ball to a certain spot, putting them in some specific drills that are going to use the athleticism that aren't going to allow them to be as controlled. So if I want them to get the ball up, I'm going to add a little bit more chaos to the actual drill to see if the body can self-organize and get to where it needs to be. I think that's anything we can do that we can get there naturally. I think a lot of throwing stuff happens when guys are trying to do unnatural movements. I've always had a guy like you go down to the river and you pick up a rock and you go ahead and skip it across. Guys look pretty good. My 7-year-old go down there and look pretty good. And then all of a sudden he gets in the baseball field and he's doing, weird things. And you're like, what are you doing? Well, I'm supposed to do that. I'm like, Tommy, just pick it up and throw it and be natural. So I lean toward that quite a bit.
That's also a barrier of entry in getting scouted and signed, correct, too, is the arm action piece. I mean, Scouts are going to cross, if catcher, long arm action, whatever it is, scouts are going to cross those guys off before they even get to you. So you don't have to worry about that as much. Not like the college guys.
That's the thing on pro ball is like usually.
They clean a lot of that up for you.
Yeah.
The scouts do.
Yeah. If I got a guy that comes to me and needs to reorganize an arm action or a release point, where it can be done. It takes a lot of work, and
It's all
it's gonna take
front
a lot of
side, man. It's all front
yeah.
side. That's the crazy thing is coaches listening in, if you want to clean somebody's arm up, you got to clean their front side up. So, equal and opposite, the back's going to match the front. So if you're trying to shorten up the back, you better shorten up the front.
I like it.
That's a good stuff. Hey, with your training staff, I mean, catchers get beat up, so they catch a lot. They get beat up. They got to block. So, what kind of recovery modalities are they using after game?
Yeah, so with the Red Sox so far this year, it's been really cool just the relationship that our players have with our AT and with our strength. It is just a part of what they do, and it is not looked down upon. So they're in the training room every day, and they're
They
in
do
the
ice baths.
wait. Yeah, some of our guys do. Yeah.
What about Normatex or the compression on the legs?
Yep. All the above. So with it, I think everybody like it's different. I'm gonna not gonna lie, like at the individual levels, I'm leave it up to our AT staff and our strength staff to be able to put a plan in place for each of our guys. But they're in there every day. They're going through the correctives in the weight room. They're going through the stretches in the AT room. They're being very communicative to our AT staff, which has been really cool to see. Sometimes there can be stigmas about being in the AT room, there being bringing something up. Oh, you're going to put them on the shelf, and I think that Boston does a really really good job of getting rid of that stigma and working with the players. And as a result, I think our guys have better routines and processes and getting in there and doing what they need to do to be on the field that night.
So your main catcher is going 4 or 5 days game. When do they lift?
We lift every day.
So you guys lift every day. How is that set up? So obviously it's 6 days. They get one day off. So those 6 days, is it like three lower, three upper? Or is it full body? Do you know like how that week is set up for them with the 6 day
No,
week?
I don't. They get in every day. They go through a kind of extensive program to get themselves ready, and then hit some lifting part in it. And it's kind of more maintenance than
Yeah, it's
anything.
just a reset, I think.
Uh-huh.
Like just get the body moving, get some mobility stuff going. It's just a way to kind of get the body reset and rejuvenated for the next game.
And it's where you fall into. That's what I love about professional baseball is like everybody has an individual plan and from AT to strength to defense to offense. And so it's like what is his objective? What is he trying to get done? Does he need to put a little bit of weight on? So his weightlifting is going to be a little bit heavier. Does this guy need to slim down a little bit, lean down? So whatever it may be, they're going to have to address those individually. So the plan is put in place, and then we individualize within it.
Every team have a nutritionist with them.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah.
That's
Boston's
a
really
big
cool.
one for me too. Is I think that's
So
changed minor league baseball for the better. Is it seems like everybody's got a nutritionist with them now.
yeah, I think right now we've three. And I was just down in Greenville last week, and um, one of ours was there, and just really good job of just educating the players and sitting down and having one-on-ones. And just we had talked about it earlier. I wish I was better with my body, and I think too the education part of it was big. And so if you could educate these guys on what it is we should be eating, how often we should be eating, what's your goal, what are we trying to do, and I think they do a nice job of that.
What separates catchers that make it to the big leagues and the ones that don't? It's a little bit luck, right?
You, I can't give you the sexy answer because can you hit like that at the end of the day, man, like
I love it.
at the
Yes,
end of
you have to be able to hit. Like you
I
have to
know.
be able to hit.
Yeah. So I mean, if you go and look at the big leagues right now, even the guys
The
are
journeyman catcher's not a thing anymore. Like
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
about some of the old school guys that, Maddox had his own guy. He couldn't hit a lick, but he had his own guy. It just seemed like you can't do that anymore.
But you know what? Even I would make the assumption, and then we'd have to go back and look at it, that guy coming up, hit in the minor leagues. That's my thing. Is like we have some guys that can really catch. You look in the big leagues, they can really catch, and they're not a great hitter. You're like, oh, that guy can't hit. Go look at his minor league stats. he's going to be usually upper half of the team in all offensive categories, in most offensive categories. And so, yeah,
That was
we
Sal. Sal was that. I
yeah,
mean, he caught, I think for 18 different teams, and his offensive numbers in the big leagues were just okay. But that guy one year led all of baseball in home runs in AAA. He had 42 home runs in AAA.
yep, there you
And
go.
his offensive numbers were just okay, but he at the big leagues, but he had 42 home runs. He led all of baseball one year in the minors.
Yeah, the kind of the assumption is when you get to the big leagues, you're going to be able to catch the ball, right? So like if you can hit, and then can you call a good game? Now that you can't quantify that right now, that's kind of where everyone's trying to look and figure out how to quantify it. And people can say they have, and maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't necessarily believe that you can, but you can look at a guy. Pitching staff likes to throw to him. Seems to get good results every time he goes out there, whether it's a placebo effect or not. That's a thing for staffs liking to throw to a guy. So I think that
That's a
plays into
momentum
it.
thing. You get some
Yeah,
momentum going. Okay, that guy's catching well. Pitchers are pitching well. We're winning. You just build momentum with guys.
yeah. I mean, look at Kurt Suzuki. That guy kept finding jobs and jobs and jobs. Like metric wise, wasn't great metrically receiving the ball, but did a lot for staffs, and was always there and
Winner.
won a
He's
World
a
Series.
College World Series MVP.
Yeah, you
He's a
know.
winner. Who's the best catcher you've coached so far?
Man, good one. Oh, I'm thinking back through guys. I wasn't ready for this one. Probably like so now got to play with him and then quote unquote coach him in 17. But Kyle Higashioka for the Yankees. Just an uber gifted receiver of the baseball. Some of the things he does that like you can't really teach. And he's always been a really, really good receiver. So he's right at the top of the list of guys that I just got to watch, and it was fun to watch him. But like when I come through, there was quite a few guys that I played with that were that I got to come up with that were good. Gary Sanchez coming up, that guy was as gifted as they come,
I was
and
going to
still
ask you
does
about
one good.
Gary just because he got so much play from them going one knee down with him. I think that was 2 years ago, correct? Everybody was all over what he was doing with his catching.
Yeah, yeah. Like, he was as gifted as you can be coming up through. He also, been catching since he was 15. There's a lot of wear and tear on those knees. The bat slowed up a little bit and was having a hard time catching up to fastballs. And so you say what you want about the catching. If he was still popping off for 30 or 40 a year, you wouldn't be talking as much about the catching. So, big arm there. But guys coming up through. J.R. Murphy had a cup of coffee with a few different teams, and we came up together. And also Romine kicked around for a long time. Pretty good backup there. So just some guys that were always around that were really good. But Higgy was always the top list.
Being competitive in the minor leagues as a player, but you look and you see guys, how do you get over that a little bit? Or is that even a thing because you're competitive or like, okay, maybe I'm not as good as that guy?
Yeah, I think that is where that's where guys end up getting to, and it hurts them. The guys that can just accept the fact of like that guy may be better than me, maybe not, but I'm going to go about my business. I'm going to take care of myself. He could be way uber talented, but the guys that get to the big leagues are the guys that go out there and do it consistently every day and do it at a consistently high level. But the guys that are uber talented that go out and post once or twice a week, you want the guy that's going to be at the big leagues that goes out there and 3-4 times a week, and you know exactly what you're going to get. Those are the guys that make it. So when you're evaluating yourself against others, sure, I think it's a good self-evaluation tool, but you have to be comfortable with who you are and what you do, and then dominate what you're good at.
I just wanted to win. Like I think that helped me because I was dumb in that way, in a good way. I didn't really pay attention to other players as much. But I also grew up in an era where there was no internet, no computer, and so you didn't see stats as much, and you didn't really pay attention to it. You just went out and played, and I think that's the hard thing with this generation of players is like everybody knows who everybody is,
Yeah.
and there might be a lot of hype on a guy, whether he's good or not. There might be some hype on a guy That's got to get in your brain somewhere.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I guess the way that we look at it is we're gonna show you what you're evaluated on. So you know exactly what you're evaluated on. We have leaderboards, guys can see where they're at. So then they can self-evaluate from there. You know, if you aren't up at the top of leaderboards, what do you need to do to get up there? What do you need to do? Right? It's not about jumping other guys. Like, what do you need? This is where you are at. How do you get better? How can we get you better? So I think trying to get rid of some of that noise, but it's hard. They open up TikTok or Instagram or whatever it may be, and you only see the good things. You see the guy hitting a homer, throwing a dude out, and you didn't see that he was actually 1 for 5 with 4 Ks and he hit a home run, right? So, or he was, they had 10 stolen bases and he threw one guy out, and that's one you see. So getting rid of the noise, which is hard, but showing them exactly what they're evaluated on, and then what and how we can get better.
Do you have a fail forward moment? Do you have something you thought was going to sidetrack you, but looking back now was one of the better things that happened to you?
Man, my entire college career, does that count?
Heck yeah.
Yeah. No, my to be honest with you, the biggest one was when I was a sophomore in college. Um, come off a disappointing college season, went had a good summer. Supposed to go out to the Cape in my sophomore year. Um, Battling a thumb injury kind of most of the year, my sophomore year, and had to play some outfield but hit well, and then tore my knee. Excuse me, tore my knee the last series against Ohio State, tore meniscus, and then I wasn't able to go out to the Cape, and it just was like I just kind of was like I felt lost, felt really really lost. I was like I just don't know if this is all going to work out the way I had thought about.
Because
And
you played for the Gems freshman summer, right? And then I think
yeah,
you were supposed
Quincy,
to go to Falmouth that next year.
Bourne,
Was it Bourne? Oh, that's right.
yeah,
Harvey Shapiro. That's
yeah,
right. You were
Harvey,
supposed to go to Bourne. Because I
yeah,
think K. Hoff went out there too.
he did, yeah, I remember that. Led the league
And
in
I
hit
was
by
pulling
pitching.
for you too, and that's why I was so happy that you got a chance to sign.
Yeah,
Because I worked my tail off on that, and so when I got that call from you and the Yankees that they were going to sign you, like that was that's like the greatest thing about coaching is when your players get opportunities. They deserve opportunities. Because if you were a D bag in college, I would have never made those. I'm serious. Like, any players listening in, be good to your coaches and treat them right, because at some point you're going to need them to help you. It might be get a job, but for guys like you, it's to help you get signed, because you're going to work the phones with the scouts to sign guys.
no different than in pro ball when you get to send somebody up on a promotion that's just it's a good dude and it's been playing well. That those are fun, man. They just to see the excitement in their eyes, and just realize that they're one step closer, and you got to just be any small part of that is really cool.
Any resources you're diving into that you feel like might help some coaches listening in?
Man, I feel like sometimes I'm just swimming right now, trying to keep my head above water. But for me, trying to learn how to coach our coaches, right? Just be better. This is the first time on my side of it, and not trying to overcomplicate things. So like, I'd read it a long time ago. I revisited not too long ago as well. But just the inner game of tennis, it's a really really good. It's just really 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 good. Keep it simple.
Are you reading
Stay
any
out of the
management
way.
books? Are you?
No, you throw me some.
Oh man, there's so many good ones. I really like Help the Helper. I think Help the
Okay.
Helper is a phenomenal book on getting people to buy into something bigger than themselves. But I do read more business books now than I ever have. And I did a little bit just to get out of my comfort zone, but there's a lot of really Simon Sinek, really good. Any of Simon Sinek's books are really good, and he's huge in the management piece about especially dealing with employees. Simon Sinek's books are really good. I can't remember
Good.
off the top of my head
Write it
what they
down.
are, but yeah, it's Sinek. Anything that you would pick up from him, he's actually all over social. You see snippets of him on TikTok and Insta and Twitter. He's really good. He's been around for a while, but yeah, I really like his books. What about
Nice.
your schedule's insane? So do you have any routines? I mean, you're going to get burned out if you don't have routines. Do you have any routines?
Yeah, I think my routines on the road are really, really good. It's trying to figure out that routine at home. That's the tough part, especially now that kids are close to being out of school. I think they got like a month left or whatever it is. But on the road, it's nice, man. I get up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, check emails, read some game reports. Then I go through any odds and ends, things I need to get done or want to get done for the day. End up watching all of our catchers, receptions, in about an hour and a half, 10, 11:30, and then grab some lunch, head to the field, work with the guys and then the coach of the field, do a little bit after that, and then watch the game, come home. I throw out a best reception of or the best caught game the night before. I sent out a video, a little hype video for the guys just to, again, kind of prioritize what we think is super important in receiving, and the guys like to see if they won the night of in the org, and so I send that out to the guys, and we do it all over again.
You don't have to write reports like managers have to write reports, correct?
We do reports once we leave the affiliate. So once I do a visit and I leave, there's a report, an overall report that we'll do on the visit.
Was that your biggest job as a manager last year? Was writing reports?
No, the Yankees had done away with reports. Everything was automated. So no, the biggest job was running the affiliate, just making sure everything was lined up, schedule was buttoned up, everybody was getting exactly what they needed to do, and we were hitting on all our player plans and our objectives for those guys. That all fell on the manager.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite months because I get to start traveling again. So I have
go.
2 times of the year where it actually feels like coaching and recruiting again. May, because I'm going to the NAI Division II Junior College, Division III World Series, and then the College World Series, and then the Fall Barnstormers. That's my 2 times of the year where I feel like I'm coaching again. And I love being in the hotel. And I'm driving my wife and daughter Nora crazy right now. So Jackson's out of the house finally, so he doesn't have to deal with me anymore. But I'm driving Amy and Nora crazy. I've been around too much, so it's.
Hey man, I'm with you. I don't know what it is. I living out of a hotel, living out of a suitcase, that doesn't bother me. It's probably why I'm still doing what I do. I really enjoy being on the road. I enjoy being in the clubhouse. I enjoy talking shop and being with the guys. So. And being able to get home a little bit more.
Being in the car for me is a huge one. I've spent almost my entire life in a vehicle, so I just feel at home driving. Luckily, we're 20 minutes away from work, so I still get in the time. But like when I'm going to watch games now, it just feels like recruiting again, where my brain will turn on because I spent so much time in the car calling recruits and coaches and whatever. My brain turns on in a good way when I'm in the vehicle.
Yeah, yeah.
What are some final thoughts or something I should have asked you that I didn't?
I guess.
I mean, for anybody listening in, what would you like to tell them about anything?
Bet on yourself. Everybody, there's people out there that know more than you, know less than you. Like we talked about a little bit earlier of not comparing yourself to others. Own what you do, own your process, dominate what you're good at, and bet on yourself. It took me a little bit to find my voice as I was coming up through as a player and as a coach, and I feel like I'm coming into my own a little bit on that, and very comfortable with who I am and the shortcomings that come with it, and I'm okay with that, and always striving to get better, and just supremely confident, right now, just in my own skin. And so just bet on yourselves and put yourself out there, because this is a big community and people always want to help.
How are you able to stay patient with that? I mean, we all go through that on our path where I feel like maybe I should be higher up than I am right now. And that's not always a good thing, because if you get something too early, you're going to be out of a job. How are you able to stay patient with that and just continue to just work?
Yeah, we had conversations about this. I've talked to you in the past about just kind of frustrated at times of where I was, but
mine is
don't
get out. Like, don't get out. I think people make that.
Yeah.
People make that mistake. Like, don't get out. Like, you might think that you deserve more, or you should be in a higher position. don't leave. Do not get out. Once you get out, it's almost impossible to get back in. Do not get out. Just
Yeah.
keep working as hard as you possibly can. And then you're going to look back in 5 years and figure out, like, okay, the path was set up for me the way it was supposed to be set up. I didn't see that. I didn't see that this was the way it was supposed to be. I thought it should be something completely different. But the universe has that way of showing you, if you just keep working hard, you're going to end up probably in a better situation than the one that you expected or felt like you deserved.
No doubt. No doubt. Like, I thought I was ready for this position 3 years ago. 3 years ago. And I wasn't. Looking back on that, I was not. Even now I'm more well equipped to handle this position. And you're learning on the fly on some of this stuff, but I was not ready. I thought I was. I wasn't. So I think just having that patience and having a wife that was very supportive and had to listen to me complain a little bit, but offering some good perspective. And then also giving me good advice and the push to take a leap this offseason. And it worked out.
Actually, one last question. For anybody that hasn't been to the ABCA convention, would you explain to them why they should come to the ABCA convention?
It's awesome. It is. It's awesome. I love it. Is one the information from a high school coach to a professional coach and everywhere in between. Just what you can take away from things is fantastic. But just the community and the just sharing of information and the people that go there that are like minded that just want to get better and they want to learn and they want to work and it's cool. It's a fun atmosphere and it's a huge community and everybody is accepted. And, I started going in 2020 when I had spoke and first time. And every year I re-up for 2 more years. So I love it. I'm going to continue to do it. So I appreciate you for pushing on me to get into it.
All right, Tyson, thanks for your time. Appreciate you. Love you. Tell Holly I said, hey, she's the Leatherneck, the WIU Leathernecks. So that's the only thing I really knew about the Leathernecks is that Tyson would go see Holly when he had time at Iowa.
Yeah.
So appreciate you, my friend.
Awesome. Love you, Coach. Thank you.